I'm Jenina Joy Chavez from the Philippines. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of Focus on the Global South. I used to be with Focus for 16 years in total, working on international financial institutions, alternative regionalisms, and transitional economies of Southeast Asia. In 2016, there was an interesting article in Finance and Development, that's a publication of the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, which had a title in form of a question. It said, neoliberalism oversold. So the main point of the article was that instead of delivering growth, some neoliberal policies actually exacerbated equality, which in turn affected economic expansion. First, they showed how countries deregulated their agriculture and other industries, opened up their capital accounts and their current accounts, and also introduced tax reform measures, all supposedly to increase competition within the economy and promote economic expansion. What actually these moves made rise to was the higher likelihood of financial crisis. The financial crisis because there were an upsurge of financial inflows into the country. And when there is a crisis, inequality actually worsened, was exacerbated during those times. So that affected how the country managed, and that affected overall growth. But you see, these policies were standard structural adjustment policies. And these were policies that were supported by the International Monetary Fund. How economies and people respond to these different policies were uncertain. It's not uniform across the board. For instance, it was shown that foreign direct investments didn't actually boost long-term growth. These are policies you can argue whether and when they are best to use them, to deploy them. But during the structural adjustment era, the IFIs, the IMF, together with the World Bank and their partners, implemented these policies across the board in a one-size-fits-all manner. So without regard for local institutions and for supportive policies. We can argue the appropriateness of certain policy handles, but if they're imposed on you and you have nothing, you cannot do anything, there is a lot of bad things that can arise out of that, because obviously the power was stuck against debtors, against those who are asking for stabilization fund, for instance, or who were at the mercy of IFIs at that time. The things that happened during and after the imposition of structural adjustment policies stay with us. We have seen debilitating financial crises all over the world, with some with global repercussions, starting with, for instance, Asia in the late 1990s, the Asian financial crisis, and then another major crisis, the global financial crisis in the late 2000s. They might start from certain countries or certain regions, but definitely the impact was felt all over because of contagion. If many countries opened up, they were affected to the same degree that they opened up. So those that were relatively closed, or tried to resist at least some structural adjustment policies or some opening up, had some relative protection from those crises. And the economies now have endured, right, those impact of the previous crisis. We also see massive deindustrialization, especially in the global south. So that's the weakening of industries, as well as the weakening of the workforces, because without industries where they can work or where they can give their talents to, the talents deteriorate. And there's also little incentive in the education system and in the training system to continue building up skills that aren't going to be useful anymore. So skills are being focused on other things. So this is how structural adjustment has affected people and countries all over the world. Quite recently, the UN Secretary General issued a warning or an alert that global debt has risen to such an alarming level. I think $92 trillion in 2022, which is a five-fold increase from the level in 2000. And why is this happening? Because they found that it's because of the disparity in exchange, in the interest rates that are given to different debtors, like big country debtors. The developed countries will have smaller interest rates, while the poorer debtors will be given higher interest rates. There's also higher reliance, they said, in private finance or the private sector as sources of debt, and all that is true. But the other thing is it's the lopsidedness in the availability of finance as well as resources, and the access, and how countries are able to deploy these financial resources. So not only is the call for reform in global financial architecture, which is what the UN is calling for, necessary. In fact, groups like Focus on the Global South have been calling for that since the Asian financial crisis. So we're 24 years at least. So some realization do come a generation too late. But it's still good that it's coming out. And they're trying to connect that to the achievement of the social development goals, but it should be something that needs to be taken really seriously.